Well, Travis, are you presiding or am I presiding? How's this work?
I'm fine presiding, Dave. It's fine.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Could I have the roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner Braun,
Yeah.
Commissioner Pearson,
Here.
Commissioner Warnick.
Here.
Let the record show you do have a quorum.
We all rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. I wanted to take a moment just to update the public, update the board. Unfortunately, I'm joining you remotely this evening because I was exposed to COVID. As most of the board knows, I am one of the caretakers for my grandparents, and they both are COVID positive. So unfortunately, their doctor, Dr. Widener, said that it would be best if I attended remotely tonight. So I went ahead and took his advice. If you would go ahead and have a moment of silence for all of our first responders that are out there, as well as our medical personnel. They continue to battle COVID and the upcoming flu season this year. So if you would just have a moment of silence with me, please. All right, thank you. All right. I need to have a motion to open a public hearing.
I make a motion to go into a public hearing.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. The general overview of tonight's public hearing. Town Administrator, do you have that?
Yes, generally, we're here tonight to consider Resolution 2022-18A, which is a resolution for the annexation of the main property of Southern States located at 881 Wilson Road. Tonight's meeting is a public hearing to hear comments from anyone in attendance at the meeting. And then at the conclusion of that public comment, the elected body can deliberate, ask questions about the resolution, make comments about it, and then you have the option of taking action on the resolution tonight, which obviously includes passing the resolution or not passing the resolution or tabling it or whatever. So at the conclusion of that, the meeting would be adjourned, and then at the conclusion of public comment, there would be a motion to close the public hearing, because that's the purpose, is to get public comment. Then after the motion is made to close the public hearing, the elected body would deliberate, discuss, take action, as I mentioned, and then you would adjourn the meeting. The purpose of tonight's meeting is just for public comment on the annexation resolution. It's not for any other town business. So that's a overview.
All right, thank you, Town Administrator. Next is the presentation of the annexation resolution, which is 2022-18A. Do you have that, Town Administrator?
Yes, I do.
All right.
All right. So to get some items into the record, we're here tonight to consider the annexation of 881 Wilson Road. And in summary, the town of Rising Sun has entered into an annexation agreement, Exhibit A, and introduced as an annexation, and has introduced an annexation resolution, Exhibit B, for the purposes of annexing a parcel of land situated in the 9th election district of Cecil County, Maryland, described in a deed recorded among the land records of Cecil County in Deed Book 00222, page 00216, having the physical address of 881 Wilson Road, Rising Sun, Maryland 21911, which is owned by the Southern States Cooperative Incorporated, a Commonwealth of Virginia corporation, hereinafter referred to as the owner. The owner is subject to a Maryland Department of the Environment MDE complaint and administrative consent order dated October 13, 2009, and the order requires, among other conditions, for the owner to develop a remedial action plan that delivers clean water source to 16 properties located in Cecil County, Maryland, along Wilson and Telegraph Roads. The owner wishes to comply with the order, whereby extending public utility extension along Maryland State Highway Route 273 Telegraph Road to the subject area to provide potable water to the affected properties. The area impacted by the order is located beyond the Susquehanna River Basin Commission watershed, and as such, out-of-basin discharges of water must be approved by the SRBC. The town of Rising Sun has agreed to provide this PUE consisting of water and sewer utilities. And here's the resolution that was submitted back in September that the board read into the minutes at that time. This is what you will be taking or can be taking action on tonight. The resolution is a legal document that describes the property to include the metes and bounds. It also has on it at the end a plat showing the property to be annexed, and I'm showing a better version of it, which basically on the left-hand side here, if you recall, the town in April of 2021 annexed a 30-foot easement heading west to east on Telegraph Road. That is the incorporated limits of the town of Rising Sun. This annexation would essentially annex the same similar type of easement of varying widths along State Highway to a termination point of 881 Wilson Road, which is the main property for Southern States. So on this map, which anyone is familiar with, that there's a match line that you match the two lines up, and the combination of these two shaded areas makes up the larger property. Here is a copy of the consent order that Southern States has been in since, I believe, around 2010, if not 2012. It's been a long time. In this consent order is where it lays out that Southern States has to provide clean drinking water to properties that were affected by a spill. Further going through the items to put into the record here is, if I get to the end of the consent order, the proof of advertisement. Given the size of the property, that it doesn't exceed a certain amount of acreage, we are required to advertise it 2 successive weeks, with the last advertisement being no less than 15 days prior to the hearing. Tonight is October 18th. As you can see, the first publication was done on September 23rd, and the next following week was September 30th, so we're more than 15 days past the last advertisement in order to have this, to consider this resolution and to have this discussion. With that, I'd like to go into a little bit of background on this. So as part of the process of this annexation, the town puts a complete package together and it sends it to the Department of Planning in what is called the clearinghouse review. And the annexation or that paperwork goes to various state agencies as sort of a one-stop shopping so that they can look at anything a municipality is doing to make sure that it's consistent with their rules and regulations. And so this clearinghouse is not something that they can stop the annexation. They just offer comments on the annexation on things such as, is it consistent with the vision of the state? Is it consistent with the town's comprehensive plan? And they also answer any other questions of discrepancy, which we're going to get into. The other body that we send this to is Cecil County. And Cecil County gets a chance to weigh in on their opinion about it. And they did send us a letter along with the Department of Planning, and I have both letters to present here tonight. But one of the things that I wanted to do was to talk a little bit more about a lot of misconception that is going on out there about exactly what is happening. Number one, this is a water quality issue that is affecting, in actuality, 17 locations. And I have a more recent letter from MDE, which you're going to see the reason why I have that letter. But it's actually 17 locations that are affected. And as part of the review process, this is something that we've been going through with the county since back in 2008, of them having an opinion about their comprehensive plan that, quite frankly, we do not feel it is a consistent interpretation of their own plan. And I'm going to show you where the Department of Planning, once again, because this is not the first time we've had this issue, the Department of Planning has also sided with the town of Rising Sun, saying that our plan is consistent with what the county's comprehensive plan calls for, and it's also consistent with the idea of people deserve clean drinking water. In this day and age, everybody deserves to have access to clean drinking water. So this is what this is about. So the county review letter dated September 28th, some of the things that I want to highlight here. Basically, in the opening paragraph, the county is basically saying the county's analysis has determined that the proposed land use is substantially different than the authorized use, meaning the county. Now, let me back up and tell you what that means. Is that when you go to annex properties from a county into a town, and this is not just germane to the town of Rising Sun, this is statewide, you can either annex that land in with the zoning that's in place with the county, or you can propose to annex it in with zoning that is similar to what the county has, or you can propose to annex it in with zoning that is substantially more, I guess, broader than what the county would permit. So what I mean by that is when you're talking about zoning, you're talking about intensity of use and density of coverage. So that's sort of the meat and potatoes of what zoning is all about. How big you're going to build things, the area it's going to cover, and the intensity of what the use is going to be. And what I mean by intensity is everybody understands there's a big difference between somebody living in a single-family home and a bottle manufacturing plant being built. That's the bottle manufacturing plant is light industrial. It's a lot more intense. And so if you are proposing to annex a piece of property in and have the zoning be substantially more than what the county permits, you have to request a waiver. The town of Rising Sun did not request a waiver because what you're going to see is in our comprehensive plan, when we showed where we were going to grow, we essentially adopted the county's zoning as our own. And so in our mind, what could happen with this one particular piece of property is at the very least not substantially more than what the county is permitting, and we think it is nearly identical. And the Department of Planning has said the same thing. Essentially, it's nearly identical. So what the county is saying here is the county's analysis has determined that the proposed land use is substantially different. And so I wanted to show you that for a second because, as I said, we got a letter from the Maryland Department of Planning, and in the letter it says, as you are, and this is a letter addressed to Mayor Marion, as you are aware, the section 4-416B of the local government article specifies that the new zoning for the annexed land cannot be substantially different from the existing county zoning without the express consent of the county council. And reviewing this annexation request, it is the department's view that the proposed town zoning does not appear to be substantially different with the current county zoning from a use perspective, as both the county's current business general BG zoning and the town's rural business RB allow for similar low-intensity commercial development. So this is a Department of Planning stating that they don't agree with the county's interpretation in that particular regard. And then you drop down to the next line that says, Rising Sun has not received express approval from the County Council of Cecil County to allow a substantially different use. So when you click on that, I want to take you to, and let me bring that up here. I want to take you to Google Earth and some overlays that I've done. So to get more specific, let's zoom in on where Southern States is actually located here. And it's out on 273 at the corner of Wilson Road and 273. For reference, it's basically catty corner to Ramsey Ford. So when you look at that, and you look at the county's zoning, and again, the county is taking the position that it's substantially more, and we have not gotten permission from the county council to be able to have our zoning apply. So let's take a look at what the county's zoning actually is out in that area. And so this is an overlay of the county's zoning map. And on this, you're going to see green area that represents what the county calls NAR. NAR allows a lot of different things, but people commonly refer to NAR, Northern Agricultural Residential, when they're considering residential development. And in the NAR area, the county requires 10 acres of land for every new single-family house that's built. Now, there are some caveats and different criteria for different circumstances, but that is about the gist of it. When the town of Rising Sun adopted its zoning in the comprehensive plan, we created a rural estate because there really is no agriculture in the town of Rising Sun. So under the rural estate, we adopted the same language on the residential side that you need 10 acres for every house that's built. So when you look at the county's position that what we're doing is substantially different, our zoning in the green area matches. And then the other color you have here is this sort of rust orange color here is what is called business general. And you heard that referred to in both the county's letter and the Department of Planning. The county calls it business general, we call it rural business. And then these blue shaded areas are what the county calls rural residential. And then over here on the end, and I'm highlighting this is right across from the Meadows Farm, right on the edge of town. This is all called suburban transition. And in suburban transition, the county allows 4 residential properties per acre. It's designed to be dense. So when you look at the county's zoning, and then you compare it to our zoning, we have the same rust color in those areas that where we adopted it. This blue is our rural residential zoning, which matches the county's rural residential zoning. This is our R1 zoning that requires one house, or allows 2 houses per acre. And then this zoning here, again, is our rural business. I'm showing you this because when you go back to the county's zoning and what they would allow, this whole area is at standard transition. The county is saying right now, somebody can develop that land and put 4 houses per acre on that land. Under our zoning, we're saying that if somebody were to annex into the town of Rising Sun, we're only going to allow 1 house per 3 acres in this area and only 2 houses per acre in the other. So if we're matching the county's zoning and in other areas we're down zoning, why does the county take the position that our zoning is substantially different? The next item here that I wanted to take you to is the county talks about this area being located in what they're calling a resource conservation land use district. Now, before I show you what this is, it's very important to recognize that they are inferring that this is basically a zoning district here, because they're saying it's a resource conservation land use district, but it's only located in the comprehensive plan. And comprehensive plans are not legally binding. Comprehensive plans, whether it's the county or the town, are roadmaps on how to proceed with how you want your community to look. If you want to incorporate the concepts that are in a comp plan, you have to either put them in your town ordinances or in your zoning code or your land development code. The county never addresses or has a zoning district for resource conservation. So it is basically a target that they would have to make, or that they would like to meet, and that's okay. But when you look at the actual land use conservation district here, and I'm going to zoom out here for a second. This is the county's land use conservation district. And it basically covers almost maybe a little under a third of the northern part of Cecil County, but as you can see, it envelops the town of Rising Sun. So in our relationship with the county and in our right by law to be able to prosper and grow, and I'm going to show you where the county even admits to that, they basically surrounded the town of Rising Sun with what they're saying is something that absolutely has to be rural conservation. That's the primary goal. But again, this is not a zoning district. So I wanted to show you how big that rural conservation district is. But more importantly, if they're taking the position that this rural conservation area, and let me back up and show you this, it says that under the rural conservation land use district and is subject to the rural areas policy of the county's comprehensive plan. And it goes on to say the RCD is intended to encourage the retention of agricultural and forestry uses and to support the county's agricultural industry. When development does occur, the essential elements of rural character need to be maintained and opportunities taken to allow agricultural activities to continue. That sounds great. And that matches a lot of what we put in our comprehensive plan of what we want to do out in that area. But the problem with this is that if they are basically saying what they said to us, that whatever we want to do violates the rural conservation area, then it's only fair to make the argument that what anybody wants to do in any of the area up here from a zoning standpoint should not be permitted. Because we are trying to annex a 5.5 acre piece of land that is zoned business general. And we're going to get into what's allowed in the county's business general in a second. But the point is, all the zoning up in this portion of the county, it is not just one zoning. And the county presents this argument that the rural conservation area is all encompassing. And the only things that can happen in the rural conservation area are things that are rural conservation are related to agricultural. But if you look at all the different types of colored zoning in these areas, you see a lot of green, which is no dispute. But you see a lot of that blue area that is rural residential. And I'm going to show you in a second why that's interesting. And when you look at the county's language about rural conservation, the rural RR area, give me 1 second to expand my page here. When you look at the county's zoning code of what's allowed in the rural residential area, it goes on to talk about maximum residential density, maximum permitted residential density shall be as follows: one dwelling unit per acre in minor subdivisions, one dwelling unit for 3 acres in major subdivisions. It also goes on to say shared water and sewer facilities serving the subdivision are permitted to enhance the clustering of lots. Well, by running public water out there, everybody's sharing in that. And so running the water out there is not in violation of their shared area out there, of what's permitted in that area. So the county also goes on again to create this sort of overlay. Within here, you're going to see areas that, if I zoom in a little bit, these blue areas are areas they consider to be either light or heavy manufacturing. Remember when I talked about intensity of use as a difference between residential home and bottle manufacturing? Well, if this is a rural conservation area, why does the county have business general, all of these different colors that are not green is my point here. And so it begs the question of anybody who owns land out here, are they really able to do what's in the zoning code that says they can do if the county's going to take the position that it's a rural conservation area and the only thing that can happen in a rural conservation is agricultural type stuff. So that's where there's a disconnect, and it doesn't make sense, the position that the county's taking in that. The other thing is they talk about the rural conservation area land use district being a policy in their 2010 comprehensive plan. And here's an interesting thing that's in the county's comprehensive plan. This is taken right out of their document, and it's titled "The Plan's Relationship with the Towns in Cecil County." And it goes on to say Cecil County contains the incorporated towns of Cecilton, Charlestown, Chesapeake City, Elkton, Northeast Perryville, Port Deposit, and Rising Sun. Under state law, the towns have their own planning authority and adopt their own comprehensive plans. In that sense, the county plan does not apply to the towns. So it's right in their document saying that. So then you go on a little bit more, and we've already talked about what the RS zone is supposed to do. It goes on to say the county's comprehensive plan identifies towns as one of the land use districts. Each town's proposed future growth area are described in the county's comprehensive plan. Now, this is a point I'm making here. If the county has already said that the towns do their own comprehensive plans by law, the county is basically saying that the growth areas around the towns are basically regulated and set forth by the county in their comprehensive plan. But when you look again at the county's comprehensive plan, under section 3.51, under the title of town, each town's proposed future growth areas are described in their comprehensive plan. During the life of this comprehensive plan, some of these lands that are in the county as of 2009 may be annexed into the towns. So in the letter they're sending us, they're saying they control the growth area in their comp plan, but their very own comp plan says the towns control the growth area. And this is not anything new. We've been dealing with this. Every time we try to do something, we get these kinds of roadblocks from the county. So then the county goes on to say, Cecil County continues to affirm that Rising Sun's 2019 comprehensive plan is not consistent with the goals and objectives of the county's 2010 comprehensive plan, even though I showed you the document says it's up to us to decide that. So how can it be inconsistent when it's up to us to decide it? And you also see the Maryland Department of Planning has said that our plan is consistent. But I want to draw attention to the fact they go on to say particularly the town's policies that encourage growth in the areas that the county has identified to remain rural. And so when you look at that, I want to take you to the county's table of permissible uses. So in any zoning code, you determine what's going to be permitted in your different zoning areas by creating a table of permissible uses. And now remember, the county said that that business general and that rural conservation should all be for rural. And they made a statement that we're basically going to ruin the rural character of that area by just simply annexing a 5.5 acre piece of land in the town. So when you look at the county's table of permissible uses, the way this reads is across the top you have all the zoning districts, and down the side is all the areas that you're allowed to do something. So where it says P, that means it's permitted with no prior approvals needed. Now, that doesn't mean you can build without a building permit. It just means you don't need land development or zoning approval to do it. Where it says permitted or PC, it means it's permitted, and you don't have to go before the planning commission or get variances, but you have to meet a list of items that have to be complied with. And where it says special conditions or SE, that's where you have to get a special exception. You have to meet the conditions, and you have to go before the planning commission and the Board of Zoning Appeals for the county to make sure they agree that you've met the conditions or the conditions are sufficient. So when you look down all the uses, all these uses on the left are relatively, benign, so to speak. But then you get down to conference centers, hotels, and motels, and you're going to see in the business general, the county will allow the construction of a conference center, they will allow the construction of a hotel, and they will allow the construction of a motel. Well, how is that rural? How is that keeping it rural there? And so we're being accused of changing the rural character. It can already be developed to hypothetically change that rural character in accordance to what the county is saying. And when you look further, just to make sure we turn over every stone, sometimes you have to look at another section of the code to sort of see what the intent was. And so under the section of hotels in the county zoning, they talk about some requirements that are germane to certain zoning districts. And so when you look at the NAR, I want to show you the NAR because those are the magic words of the zoning out in the rural conservation area. In the NAR, it says hotels cannot exceed 10 rooms. Access has to be directly from a collector road. So it's sort of limiting the size of that hotel in the NAR. But you're going to notice RB or BG is not listed in here. That means there's no limitations on it. That means there's no limitation of rooms. There might be other limitations called bulk regulations that limit the height and all, but they are allowing a hotel the way we would picture a hotel to be built. They are allowing that in those areas. When you scroll down through here, it gets interesting. You can open up a vocational school. You can have private clubs. You can have hospitals, nursing care facilities. You can have an indoor theater, 12 seats indoor theater with 12 screen indoor theater. There's no limitation. You can have a drive-in movie theater. You can have off-track betting. You can have privately owned outdoor recreational facilities. You can have an amusement park, which means you could hypothetically contact Dorney Park and say, hey, would you like to relocate to this portion of Cecil County, and you can open up an amusement park. Again, I'm not questioning what they want to do with their community and what they're the gatekeepers of how their county should look. But how can they sit there in that letter and say that we are doing something drastically different? And again, you go on through the letter, and it says, what we are proposing to do is destined to reduce Cecil County's rural heritage. But again, when you go back to the overall map, this is all the stuff they said could be done out there. We just went through that list, and this is the stuff that we're looking to do out there. All of these properties are basically properties that have health and safety issues in them. And with MDE asking us back in 2010 or so to consider helping with regional water issues, we put it in our comprehensive plan, but it's not our intent to change the rural character, but yet we're being accused of that. So with that, I think, the other thing that the county said in their letter is they said that 881, the property that we are annexing, is not part of the consent decree. And they're trying to split hairs, and they're referencing some other properties that were in a letter from the county executive. But the problem is, what they took out of the county, out of the consent order was the properties, there were 11 that had to receive bottled water. And they're taking that as those are the only properties that are affected by the consent order. So they're making a statement that us annexing 881 under the pretenses of doing it for the consent order is not an accurate statement because the consent order doesn't cover 881. So we knew what the consent order said, but we wanted it to come from the Maryland Department of the Environment. So this is a letter that we received from the Maryland Department of the Environment on the 14th. And it said, the town requested clarification on which properties are addressed under the consent order. The consent order establishes SSC, Southern States obligations for 881 Wilson Road. And it goes on to list 16 other locations that are supposed to get water under this consent order. So the county's statement that what we're doing is not consistent with the consent order it's not an accurate statement. It's right here in black and white. The other thing is that when the county is suggesting that 881 is not in the consent order, they would then be going on further to stipulate that 881 is not in the master sewer and water plan. And MDE answers the question that the areas regulated under the consent order, Southern States, are in the master sewer and water plan. And here's the important point, and this gets lost. The map had to be modified by MDE because back in 2019, the county was refusing to allow any water to go out for these water quality issues. So we had to get MDE to execute their authority under state law to modify the map. And that's what they did. And so on the page that MDE sent back to us the other day, here is the Southern States area on the Rising Sun Water Service District. So we wanted to make sure that we dispelled some of these rumors that are going on out here. Again, the last statement they make, which is a little bit insulting, if the town's plans are realized, then 60 years of land planning in northern part of Cecil County will be instantaneously undone. They're basically saying we're going to destroy the all the work they've done, but the work they did was to zone the area for all the development that I showed you. So we wanted to make sure that we address those issues in the plan, and that concludes the staff report.
Thank you, Town Administrator. Does anyone have any comments? We have a public comment period. Hearing none, are there any comments from the board?
Yeah, you would close the public hearing at this point.
All right, could I get a motion to close the public hearing?
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, I do have one request.
Okay,
I am asking that Commissioner Warnick recuse himself from any discussion or any voting or any deliberation or action on this subject because of potential conflict.
Yep,
Okay, turn your mic on.
I'm sorry. Here, I'm trying to talk into it. And I concur with that. I mean, given my role at the county and the conflict this vote may create or perceive conflict that it could create with my role at the county, especially given the letter from the county. And the previous action we've taken as a board to remove me from anything associated with this because of the potential for conflict with my role at the county. I concur with Commissioner Pearson's request for me to recuse myself, and I will do so. Thank you.
All right, is there any further discussion?
Of course, I have a little list here of things that I would like to have put into the record.
Do you want to do that under our deliberation and action, Commissioner Pearson?
Well, I thought that's where we were I thought that's where I thought we were at.
Okay, well, I didn't get a whole, I didn't call the vote for the motion to close the public hearing, so if I could just get
No, you
that.
did.
Yes, you did.
You did.
Did I?
Yes, you
Okay,
did.
Okay,
It's the
okay,
COVID
well then
fault,
we're
man.
good.
COVID
All
brain
right,
does that.
Commissioner Pearson, ignore me, go ahead.
Okay, there's several things that town administrator brought up that I want to reemphasize on a few points.
One point of order, Commissioner, should you, like, and I'm recusing myself, but should the board make a motion and a second to get to discussion before?
Yes, I make a motion, we go into
Well, no, you make a motion either to move the resolution, I mean, because you need to have a motion on the floor for the resolution to have discussion about it, correct?
At this point, if there was public comment, this would be the opportunity for the elected body to respond to any public comment. So when you make the motion, and town attorney, correct me if I'm wrong, if you make the motion to adopt the resolution, there will be discussion more germane to the resolution itself at that time.
Okay.
Am I accurate with that, town attorney?
Yeah, I think that, the commissioner can put things on the record now. This is your opportunity to put things on the
I
record.
just wanted to make sure we were
And-
clear on it.
Yep, and at the conclusion, then you can have a motion to do something and then discuss the motion.
Thank you, sir, I'll go back to being quiet.
One of the main points that the county has made is that we're going to ruin the rural aspect of 273 in allowing massive development. I'd like to point out there are only 2 farms between the town limits and Wilson Road. One is the Meadows property, which is already adjacent to the town property via the Knutson land. And the second is Albeck Farms, which is already in rural ag. So there is no actual land there for development. The rest is residential. The county has declared that we are in a rural conservation area. And I'd like to point out 2 things that they've done that have violated, in my opinion, their own feelings. One, on Tome Highway, there's a Dollar General being built. This is in the RCA area. In 2021, that land had farm growth on it. I believe it was soybeans that were grown on that land last year. So you've now taken one instance from a rural conservation agricultural and turned it into a business. The second point is at 273 and Blue Ball Road. For many years, there was farmland there. It is now being turned into a warehouse. I cannot anywhere find where General Dollar and this warehouse are agricultural in any method. The county attorney has told me directly that if we're to run a line out there, we're to run a 2-inch water line. Now, Mr. Scott, I don't believe you did your homework on this. I spent 25 years learning water flow and water resistance. there is a term called friction loss. It is the loss of pressure when the fluid meets a hard object. Example, water going through a PVC pipe. If we were to follow your lead on a 2-inch pipe, the pressure to start to push that water would need at least 690 pounds per square inch. The majority of pipe made only goes up to 400. So we would have to put in numerous high pressure pumps just to get the water there. Then it becomes a closed system. MDE does not allow closed systems. We plan on running an 8-inch line for 2 purposes. One, to get adequate water supply, and the friction loss there on roughly 2 miles is 136 PSI. As you can see, it's considerably less. You would not need as big of a pump either in the beginning or during the course to increase the pressure. The second thing is, and I think you're missing this point by us putting an 8-inch line in, we have dry hydrants for the Rising Sun Community Fire Company now. That 8-inch line, we intend to put fire hydrants on, which would then allow the fire company to be able to access that water easier. And also, as a benefit to the residents along 273, they could apply for a lower homeowner's rate because they have a municipal water supply. Now, Calvin, I believe there's something that's is it with Perryville that has the, about water supply we were reading earlier?
It's actually the county's comprehensive plan.
Oh, okay, I stand corrected.
It's in the county's comprehensive plan, and it's in section 8 something here. Let me scroll down to it here. And again, under a comprehensive plan, if you remember from back in March, your job is to cover all kinds of different elements in your comprehensive plan and planning your community going forward. And one of those is emergency services. So under the emergency services section here, under fire, rescue, and emergency medical services, there's a statement in here that says, areas without water service rely on tanker trucks from volunteer companies for suppression in place, where holding tanks and dry hydrants have not been installed. The water carried by the tanker trucks often runs out before a fire is controlled. Although installation of tanks and hydrants is not required, the Planning Commission often recommends that infrastructure be installed as a condition of approval during the development process. Encouraging the further development of this infrastructure would improve fire protection in the rural areas.
So that's another aspect. I guess what generally has bothered me, and I've been involved with this since pretty much the very beginning, is the county's denial that there is a problem with the water on Wilson Road. I personally have friends that lived there and will tell you there was a major problem with their water. Okay, that's my conclusion on my feelings.
Does anyone else have any comments? The only comments that I'm going to make is I am stunned at the length that Cecil County administration continues to go to be objectionary towards the town of Rising Sun. As Commissioner Pearson has pointed out, right up the road on what used to be a rural agricultural area, there was a planned commercial strip mall, which is now turned into a warehouse right off of Blue Ball Road. It seems to me that they are nitpicking and allowing what they want in that portion of the county versus what is good for the people in our community. We continue to try to solve health and safety issues. We are thankful for MDE and MDP for help in this venture. We continue to have their support, and I'm very thankful, especially to MDE, for their clarification in the response to Cecil County's letter. Moving forward, is there any other deliberation? All right. Could I get a motion to approve Annexation Resolution 2022-18A?
I make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-18A.
Any discussion, or is there a second? Excuse me.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Could I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.